today we saw what I think could be a $1 trillion announcement. Now, that maybe sounds a big and a little bit grandiose, a lot of that type of stuff. So I will explain why I think that is the case. And I think once we go through it, you probably will kind of agree with me with what I'm saying and how big of a ramification this could be. I think this is huge for crypto generally. I don't know that this is big for one specific project per se, but if I had to kind of push it into a couple of like different big winners from this announcement, I would probably say Ethereum, XRP, Cardano, and Solana. Those are going to be kind of the big four that I think are major winners from this type of announcement. So anyway, what is this announcement? And the announcement that we actually saw, we'll get into some of the details here in a second, but essentially banks can now host validators for these crypto projects or these crypto public blockchains, I guess is how they describe it more generally. And they also can custody stablecoins. They also can custody crypto assets, a lot of that type of stuff. So I do think banks are going to be jumping pretty hot and heavy into the crypto industry. We'll talk about that again, like I said, a little bit further on into the video. But right now we're going to be talking about the crypto bubbles. As we can see on the crypto bubbles, it is yet another red day. We are red day, red week, and red month. Still a green year so far, which is pretty good. We can see a couple major winners kind of helping everybody else out here. But yeah, the month obviously fairly red here. Week also fairly red as well, and then the day also red. We can see actually the biggest one down is Pi. I am actually going to be doing a video later on today talking a little bit more about Pi. I think there's a little bit more to the story here, and so I want to talk a little bit about what we could potentially be seeing. This one has been doing very well so far, so I want to talk a little bit about that. Also, we can see, not too many things moving up here. Overall, I would say, definitely kind of a red tilt on the market for the day, for sure. But we also want to just take a quick look at some of the big charts that I want to talk about. So obviously, we'll start here with Cardano. We can see that Cardano is actually kind of sitting on a pretty strong level of support here. If we go and let's just do kind of a little bit of like a horizontal line, it kind of about like this level, we can see that this has been a pretty consistent, like, and again, we don't do levels exactly, but you can see like this is a pretty good zone of both support and resistance. We can see this is a very strong level of resistance for a little while back, and now it's being a pretty strong level of support. So that's good to see. If we go over and take a look at something like Ethereum, we can see Ethereum struggling a little bit. Frankly, Ethereum has been another one that's it's been having a hard time, right? And if we look, we can actually see there's a little bit of some consolidation going on. The market generally, I think, is seeing just a lot of consolidation throughout a lot of the major cryptos. So if we see here, probably something maybe more like this, we maybe could expand it out to this and draw a little bit more, but we are seeing a little bit of some consolidation here. If we get in and we take a quick look at XRP, let me just find some XRP. XRP honestly is looking fantastic. The strength of the chart on XRP has been very impressive thus far. I'll give a second for it to load up. We can see, obviously, we saw that really nice pump off of that announcement last week, followed by the subsequent dump, but we've kind of held up above, again, this kind of level of support and resistance that we have seen at this level. I will do the same thing. We'll kind of put that level here. That kind of seems to be the major point. We can see we're looking at 4 hours, so we can see very strong level of support over the past probably several weeks at this point. So that's been good. If we actually, I want to show you on the daily chart what we're seeing on Solana or on XRP as well, because you can see there's really nice run up. We saw kind of that secondary run up here after we kind of broke out of this wedge, and then we have kind of come down a little bit, but the price has held very well on XRP, which I do think is really impressive. And then I want to round this out by taking a look at Solana. This is one that has not done particularly well recently. We have seen, when Trump released his coin, it got all the way almost up to $300 here, but since then it's basically been almost down only. You can see that I do have a trade open right now. It's up about 40%. I've got that take profit here up at this about 143 level. Monitoring this closely, we'll see kind of what goes on here with this trade. But we can see obviously Solana and another point of kind of support here. We can see, a really strong level of support at this level, which is kind of why I took this trade. Just looking for a little bit of a bounce here. We are playing this on 25x leverage, so relatively high leverage, relatively speaking. Usually anything above 10 is what I would call high leverage. some people are crazy and they play, 100x, 200x, 300x, 400x leverage, which is pretty nuts. I usually don't do that type of stuff. I usually kind of just do mostly in the 5 to 10 range. But we're going to go a little bit higher just because we kind of are sitting on that level of support here. So that's what we're seeing out of Solana. Hopefully we can start to see a little bit of a turnaround. Obviously, as I mentioned, very, very kind of negatively slanted over the past several weeks. And so hopefully we can see a little bit of a turnaround there. Now, I want to kind of zoom in on kind of this announcement that we've seen from the office of the comptroller of the currency. So this is basically coming from the Treasury in the US. You can see banks can now, Marty Party is essentially summarizing here for us. Banks can now be validators on public networks. So again, think Ethereum, Solana, XRP, Cardano, a lot of these types of things. Custody crypto for customers, which is again amazing news. This they technically could before, but the government made it as such as that it was a very, very unwieldy way to do it, and basically made it economically unfeasible for banks to actually custody crypto for their customers. So this had to kind of change a little bit. The rules have changed here. And then also they can hold stable coins. I think stable coins are going to be really, really kind of a key within the US. A lot of what we have right now are like digital dollars. So they functionally may not feel too different from stable coins, but the thing is we just, they're kind of just like, bytes and bits or, whatever. They're just kind of there in the ecosystem. There's really no backing to it. Nobody knows if they're reserved or not. A lot of times they aren't. They're fractionally reserved is generally how they are. Stablecoins have to be fully reserved. And so if you hold stablecoins, it can be at least guaranteed with like treasury bills. In my opinion, that's kind of a nice way to kind of store your money, because then there's actually going to be the backing there if you actually do that. So something kind of interesting there. Here you can see this is actually the letter from the Office of the Comptroller of Currency. It came out on March 7th. So this was actually on Friday, not today, or I guess Friday, 2 days ago. I'm trying to, the weekends always kind of blend together a little bit for me. But we can see that this came out, and this is really, really good news. I think this is really going to kickstart adoption of crypto with banks just more generally. Now I want to kind of double click and zoom in on this be validators on public networks. Now I want to go in and I want to kind of zoom in on this validators of public networks specifically, so we can talk about why this is important. Because one of the things that we've seen so far is banks have essentially been kind of iced out from the adoption of crypto more generally. And I think that's kind of problematic, right? Because obviously if we're going to adopt this kind of new financial paradigm, obviously banks need to be involved from a level of like mass adoption type of perspective. Because if like let's say I have a bank, I need my bank in some capacity to have some level of crypto support for it to reach a kind of fairly ubiquitous level of adoption, right? Because there's a lot of people who maybe aren't super crypto savvy. If their bank can't support it, they probably either don't know how, or maybe they don't know how and don't care to figure out, just because they're really only going to do, or they're really going to kind of go inside the bounds of what their bank can support. And so now that banks can support a lot of this type of stuff, I think it's going to make it a lot more accessible for a lot more people. And also with being validators on public networks, this actually gives banks vested interest in being able to support, let's say, the Cardano network, right? If they validate the Cardano network and they stake and do all that type of stuff, they will get rewards. And so this does allow banks to kind of keep that passive income yield that they have. And think about in the sense of like, this happens a lot, right? What is kind of the core purpose of a bank? Well, a bank takes deposits from users. They then essentially hold those deposits in account, and then they'll go lend out those deposits to other users who are looking to essentially take money, right? And then what they're going to be doing is they're doing just simple interest arbitrage. So the people who have their funds deposited get paid, let's say 4% interest, and the people who are taking loans, let's say pay 8% interest, and the bank, as the intermediary, is collecting that 4% interest spread. I think we could see something very, very similar going on here with the validating of public networks. Let's say I have 1,000 Cardano, and I actually don't know the number off the top of my head right now, but let's just say you need 10,000 Cardano to validate a network, right? Well, I may only have 1,000, but maybe cumulatively, the bank may have 100,000 Cardano that can validate a network, right? And so that means they could potentially have up to 10 validators. Now, obviously, are going to need a level of reserve that in case, like let's say I want to withdraw all of my Cardano, things like that, they're going to need a level of reserve. This is exactly how banks work. If everybody in the bank, this is what the term run on the bank comes from. If everybody in the bank were trying to come and get their dollars today, they would not be able to support that level because a lot of the dollars in the bank are actually lent out to other people. Not everybody's dollars are actually sitting in the bank actively. And so, because we know that that's how banks work, we could essentially expect that, let's say you need 10,000 or you need 10,000 Cardano to essentially host a validator, and the bank has 25,000 Cardano, they may be able to hold that 5,000 Cardano in reserve for people who may be looking to withdraw their Cardano specifically. And then they might actually be able to run 2 validator nodes and earn some passive yield on the Cardano that they have. Now, maybe this would also give banks the ability to pay out interest to their Cardano holders at the bank, right? And so now Cardano holders are able to earn passive yield on their Cardano. Even though I may not specifically have enough Cardano to actually like run my own validator, I can essentially work through. This is kind of like a pool, right? This is exactly how this happens. But if for whatever reason people want to hold their Cardano within the bank or something like that, they now have the ability to do that without actually like, having to like self-custody or things like that. Now, again, I'm always a proponent of not your keys, not your crypto. You should be self-custodying your crypto, a lot of that type of stuff. But I do think that we need to face the reality that a lot of people do value banks. They value the perceived security or the perceived trust that banks provide. And so with that, I can see, especially some of the older crowd, I would imagine that banks would be a very, very really strong place for them to place a lot of their crypto. And that would be very successful for banks, which means banks, of course, can earn a lot of money, which makes it very profitable for them. So this is something that I do think is a very, very strong change that we have seen within the legislation, the regulations so far, is the fact that now that banks can custody crypto and be validators and a lot of this type of stuff, I do think we will probably start to see some offerings from banks allowing people to store their Cardano or their XRP or their Solana or whatever, anything with the bank. And then the bank will actually maybe be able to go and essentially stake these coins. And now they'll be able to earn yield, provide interest, a lot of that type of stuff. This is going to be kind of the the tradfying of crypto. I think is probably a little bit of what's going to happen there. So anyway, I think this is a pretty interesting thing that we are seeing. Also, I did just want to refer you, going back to kind of what we were talking about earlier, I do have the link in the description below for WEEX if you are interested in trading some of these cryptos. I do think over time, a lot of these kind of made in America cryptos are probably going to do quite well. So if you are looking to get in on buying some of them, holding them, trading them, leverage trading them, whatever, a lot of that type of stuff, I do have the links in the description below, both for WEEX, Phemex, and BTCC if you're interested in any of those. Now, moving on, just to kind of wrap up this whole sentiment, I do think this is a very, very, very important announcement that we have seen. I do think this is $1 trillion announcement because I think there's a lot of people who are not on the bleeding edge of new tech, right? I think if you're here, congratulations. I would say that you are probably on the bleeding edge or somewhat close to the bleeding edge of new tech generally. And so I think, but that's just not most of the world, right? And so I think that as more of the like institutional adoption comes around, and more importantly, institutions figure out that there's a lot of money to be made here, I think that the adoption towards kind of the more like slower adopters, and this is not anything against them. This is just kind of, there's a little bit of kind of like a bell curve, right? Of like early adopters, kind of like the front end, the back end, and then kind of like the laggards, right? I would say we're still kind of in like the early adopters, getting into like the front end and the back end. That's going to be largely on the back of banks, in my opinion. So anyway, hopefully you found the information in this video useful. If you did, please do give me a like and a subscribe. It really, really does help me out. Also, if you have any comments, thoughts, questions, anything like that, just drop those in the comment section below. I do try to read and respond to all of those. So if you have anything you want me to see, that'd be a great way to do so. And let me know kind of what your thoughts are with this. I think this is $1 trillion announcement. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. Just let me know your thoughts. I'd be really interested to know. So anyway, thank you guys for tuning in, and we'll see you in the next one.